I think it's working. Hello? Hello? Yeah, good. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Really excited to be here to kick off the crypto AI track at ETHDenver. To start off, I'm going to be kind of like the warm-up act before the real builders and stars come on. My goal with this talk is to kind of give you guys a general introduction to crypto AI, but more importantly, to kind of give everyone a reason why you should be so excited about this entire track and why I think it's going to become a pretty huge deal. So some of the things I'm going to cover in this talk is kind of what is this thing in the first place, and what this thing is not. And I think that second point is really important because I think a lot of people think that crypto AI is like this huge thing, and actually right now it's actually kind of tiny and it's going to grow into something bigger. I'm going to talk about what that tiny thing is, so what exists today, and then get into where we're going in the future. But before we get into it, I just kind of want to make the point to the few of us in this room that is able to step outside of their crypto bubble every now and then. The kinds of things or the rate of innovation that's going on in AI outside of crypto is pretty insane. So get this, in the last 2 weeks, X or Twitter released an AI model which outcompeted the top AI model by OpenAI, O3, or I think it's 4.0 right now. 7 days later, so that was literally like 3 days ago, Anthropic released another AI model which beat Grok. So the rate of innovation of these AI models getting smarter and smarter is now come down to like a weekly basis. In addition to that, not one, not two, but 5 life-sized human helper robots were launched that can do a range of things like buy your groceries, put those groceries away, make a meal for you, and a bunch of other household items. Now, I'm not saying that's cutting edge, but it's pretty scary and very Black Mirror-esque to kind of see these things happen. And then the third thing is all the top AI model providers, so OpenAI, Claude, Anthropic, all that kind of stuff, just released AI agent products. And the reason why this is super interesting is that they currently allow you to do a bunch of really cool things. If you're a software engineer, now you have the best coding assistant for whatever project you're trying to build, right? If you are a business or entrepreneur or founder, you can now create an app in a single prompt as if you're typing to ChatGPT. So these agents are going to become fully more immersed in your life. But what about in crypto? Well, in crypto for the last year, an interesting stat is the mind share of AI has been #1. So on this screen here, on the left side of the screen, is a screenshot from Keynote, which measures sentiment analysis in crypto. And you can see that AI is commanding 33%. I took a screenshot of this morning of total mind share in crypto. And as you know, crypto markets are very narrative driven. But literally a month ago, that block was 70%. So AI is consuming a ton of mind share in crypto. And I'm wondering kind of at this point, why? Like, why is it so interesting? Why do people even care? Well, the obvious thing is, or at least obvious to me, is I think crypto and AI have a lot of synergistic compatibility between themselves. Just off the top of my head, the way that AI is helped by crypto is cheaper financial rails, the ability to create assets and trade and do whatever you want, kind of autonomously manage your situation. And then, of course, people are like, well, can I trust this AI in the first place? Blockchains help with the verification side of things, right? Not to mention decentralization of model ownership and all that kind of stuff. Now, on the how does AI help crypto, the #1 thing is UX, abstraction. So, I mean, I don't think it's any surprise to anyone here, but crypto is kind of hard to navigate and use no matter what we tell ourselves. The UX between a million different chains and L2s is kind of crazy. Now, AI can help kind of abstract all of that away by just talking into a simple chatbot or whatever that might be. So there's a lot of synergistic compatibility. And if you're thinking, well, what is crypto AI? There's 2 buckets that you can kind of think of. On the left side, you've got the resource stack. So think of this as like infrastructure layer. So, how can I get data? How can I get compute? And how can I build these AI models? That's kind of like the boring infrastructure stuff, which is actually really, really important. Blockchains can help with that, and more on that later. On the left side, we've got the agent stack. Think of this as like the application layer. In my opinion, I think these agents are going to become kind of like the new versions of websites. And so if you're interacting with these agents, how does it differ from websites? Like, do I move around, do I click, or do I just speak to someone or an agent and it just does a bunch of things for me? It instantly understands what I'm trying to say. So I think the nuance between these two is super important to understand. The not so obvious though is probably a lot of questions that well, I've been hearing, but I'm sure you guys have as well, which is, okay, well, what do these things look like? How do I even interact with these things? And what are they going to do for us? And are they autonomous? You know, it's the number one question I get. Like, hey, Ijaz, you talk about these agent things every week, but like, I don't think they're actually agents. Are they autonomous? Which is pretty valid feedback. My kind of vision of all of this is twofold. I think agents will be the number one users of blockchains. And that's a pretty, well, it used to be a very non-consensus thing to say. And the reason why I think this is, think about it. For the last 10 years, we've built an alternative financial system, right? But it's built on open source code and toolings. Now, who do you think is going to be the better user of that software stack? Is it going to be a human that sleeps 8 hours a day, that has mood swings, that probably is more error prone? Or is it going to be a super smart kind of human-machine hybrid? My bet is going to be on the latter, and I already see a lot of this agentic activity happening today in its most rural form, which is bots, right? Bots run a ton of activity on blockchains already. The second fold here is I think blockchains will create key resources. So with Bitcoin, with Ethereum, we've seen amazing resource management around developing new apps or constructing a new value for money or monetary asset, right? I think blockchains are going to be used in a similar way for AI resources, like data, like compute, stuff like that. And so I think one thing I always ask myself when everyone comes up to me and they're like, hey, I want to add AI to my product and I think I could do A, B, and C, I kind of like tell them to step back and say, well, let's just look at like what we've been building so far. Like, think about it. We've been building all these blockchains to kind of account for humans using it, right? So we're like, okay, how can we make humans less error prone? We've got smart contracts, it's deterministic, et cetera, and we've built a bunch of different chains, and now there's different tribes, you know? Ethereum people love Ethereum, Bitcoin people love Bitcoin, Solana people love Solana, and some of them overlap between each other, right? But I'm wondering, in a world full of agents, when they're the users, or when AI is like spread across everything, and people interact with these things in a very different way, it'll probably be chain agnostic, right? So does it matter if we have 500 L2s? Maybe, maybe not, I don't have the answer. Or do we have like 1 to 5 major L1s and they do all of it for us? Regardless of that, I think we need to focus on the low-hanging fruit, which is let's make one of our main sectors easy to use, which is DeFi, and simplify a lot of the on-chain experience, which I think crypto AI is going to help a lot with. And at the bottom layer, I'm representing all the resource stack that will kind of feed into all of these things going forwards. My number one bit of feedback is, Ijaz, all of these agents aren't autonomous, they're just bots. And what I'll say is nothing innovative that's gone from 0 to 1 has been its perfect instantiation right at the end. It's almost ridiculous to assume that we're going to have the perfect layout of all these things. I think autonomy is going to be pretty progressive. Think of like AI as like this baby toddler, and that's the reason why people love it so much. It's very human, right? But it gets mistaken sometimes. It makes mistakes. It hallucinates sometimes. And so we're kind of like guiding it. We're kind of like taking it through its like early days, its teenage years, to try and figure out what it actually looks like and how it interacts with us. And then in my opinion, focus on like where the fundamentals are evolving for these machines, right? Where like, look at things like reasoning, analysis, efficiency. Try and figure out whether these agents or these crypto AI things are getting more human. If the answer is no, you're probably on the wrong path there. And the data shows, I mean, I don't know if you guys can actually make out that tweet, but it basically says that of the top AI developers in the world, pretty much 43% are using agents to actually construct the apps that they're building. And of those agents, I think 34% of them use tools, so they use other agents to interact with. That's a pretty high hit rate. Okay, so what actually exists, right? Like, you know, stop talking about the theory. The truth is, there's a hell of a lot of agents out there. They bracket across personal assistants, writing content, constructing code for you, or running your DeFi protocol, or whatever that might be. There's a ton. And I think the one that's captured most people's imaginations within crypto specifically has been, hey, these like Twitter KOL agents, right? And people are like, all they do is they make funny jokes, and they've kind of gotten kind of boring. And I completely agree with you. Most of those Twitter KOL bots or agents they're not gonna make it. But you gotta ask yourself, for the agents that are able to aggregate a really large community or following, what are they gonna do? What's their next step? well, we're starting to see those steps by agents like AIXBT. And for those of you who don't know, it's an agent that basically gives you really good financial alpha or tells you where to look in terms of like investing your money within crypto. And it's really quite good because its tone is pretty accurate and it like ingests a lot of Twitter data and on-chain data. And what they released recently a few weeks ago was this Bloomberg terminal kind of product where if you own its token, you get access directly for any kind of query that you might have for it. And it's really interesting how they've like constructed different perks based on whether you link your Twitter account or whether you have certain tokens, et cetera. So I think a lot of these agents are going to dog food to their hundreds of thousands of followers a product. So it's gone kind of like from a meme coin to something that has actual value. And on the deep end side of things, or on the AI network, the resource side of things, we're seeing a lot of blockchain networks being spun up that hit some of the core components that you need within AI: compute, data, coordination, and models. I've given some examples up here. You'll note under compute, which I think is actually one of the most important ones right now, you have a difference of training and inference. And these kind of protocols basically help funnel into all of them. I'm not going to get into them, but feel free to find me after if you want to talk more about that. Also, I just want to point out on the coordination layer, crypto is really probably most useful there because we use tokens to incentivize different types of behavior and creation. So those two protocols are pretty cool, at least from my opinion. And then on the agent side of things, I think, going back to my earlier point, I think we should focus on DeFi maybe to start off with. We're seeing some really cool things appear. So we have these agent execution engines, which you can kind of think of as like ChatGPT, but for anything DeFi related. So you can kind of like type into a search bar. I think this is a screenshot from Wayfinder, one of the teams building one of these things. And you could say, hey, I have these tokens on my Ethereum mainnet wallet. Could you shift some over to Base, buy this other token, and stake them for me? And it'll do it all in a matter of seconds, which is really, really cool to see. And then I'm kind of thinking of like, okay, these agents combining with wallets, what does that look like? Risk optimization, ton of other stuff like that. On the gaming side, I'm starting to see a lot of these agents being involved, or AI rather, being involved in terms of like creating autonomous entities that you can kind of interact with that evolve with your gameplay. I'm starting to see adaptable environments, so when you kind of move around, you see these like auto-generated kind of landscapes shift, and a different social layer, like people kind of interacting with these agents. And I kind of think of like, is everyone going to interact with these agents on a ChatGPT-like interface, or are they going to talk to each other on Twitter? It's kind of up in the air now, and I'm curious to see how that evolves. And then finally, I think a lot of these agents are going to do something which crypto has kind of been ambivalent towards, but I think is going to happen more and more, which is bridge the gap between Web 2 to Web 3. I think these agents are going to help you do a bunch of crypto stuff, but they're also going to help you do a bunch of non-crypto stuff. And guys, that's okay. That's completely fine, and I think it's going to be really conducive to bringing more people into this industry. And finally, there's these things called agent platforms, and the reason why I bring this up is it's easy to talk about AI L1s, like the BitTensors or the Auroras or whatever that might be, but I think people need to focus on the consumer layer of crypto AI, which is, these different agent platforms are allowing you to build agents and then do different kinds of things. So it's kind of like giving you the way to kind of build whatever you kind of want within an application layer, which is through these agents, right? Okay, so where are we going? I'm just going to kind of round this up, I guess, which is it's actually all going to crap, and we're going to do financial nihilism agents. It's going to gamble everything away for you, and we're going to have no utility from this. Obviously, I'm doing this with a heavy dose of sarcasm. I actually think we're going to go towards somewhere way more productive. I've split this out into 3 stages, in my opinion. Stage 1 is I think we need to focus on abstracting away all the complex crypto native stuff and focus on crypto agents and crypto AI stuff, solving that kind of stuff. So that could be compute, or data on the resource side of things, or helping abstract away a ton of the complex crypto on-chain actions for you. Stage 2 will kind of be what I'm calling unsexy agents, which is like agents that work for you in the back end, that you don't really see, that you don't really interact with, but do a ton of important stuff, like aggregate data, or bridge stuff for you from wallet to wallet that you don't really need to interface with, but they're doing good work in the back end. And then stage 3, which is consumer social agents, which is like these Twitter agents that will get way more interactive and useful for you going forwards. But I've spoken for way too long, and I think it's time to bring on the next act. I just want to give a quick, brief primer of what's happening in this track today. Super exciting. We're bringing on pretty leading industry panelists and talks, but we're also going to be doing live demos of a ton of really interesting products. We're actually going to start off with Alex Atala, who's going to be demonstrating OpenRouter as product and a ton of other stuff. So yeah, I'm going to hand it over to him, but thanks everyone.
Testing. Okay. I'm Alex Atala, the CEO and founder of OpenRouter. And OpenRouter looks like this. It's, I believe, the largest AI model router today. Currently, we have about 500,000 developers, and we process almost 1 trillion tokens a week, which, to put in another point of view, is about 1.8 million tokens per second across all models. A token is basically a word. And before I get into the specifics and how I think this will play into the AI agent sphere that Ijaz was talking about, I want to talk a little bit about how this got started, because it helps frame the reason for why you'd use a model router to begin with instead of going directly to a model. Rewind to the early part of 2023. It wasn't clear to anyone back then whether it was going to be a winner-take-all market for language models. There were only maybe 2 usable ones, DaVinci 3 and Cohere Command. And there were a couple open source ones that weren't really usable. And at the time, there were a few experiments for how we could maybe let users choose which models they could bring to their page. I started one called Window AI that looks pretty similar to MetaMask. You would type in what you want, and instead of the website choosing which model was going to be used, you would be able to select your own. And so here I selected an open source model, and I asked it to generate directly in this web page, and the website itself doesn't know what model I used, but I maintain control of the model and control of the credentials. So what turned out to happen, open source models became really usable. Someone fine-tuned Llama for $600 and created Alpaca. And it was the first real serious usable model I ever tried out locally. So it became kind of a very interesting proposition whether there was going to be just hundreds, thousands of these that were actively being used instead of a winner-take-all market. And if it's not a winner-take-all market, you need a portal to discover these things, and that's why we built OpenRouter. So you can think of it as, it's similar to Alchemy or Infura. It's one API that manages thousands of APIs for you, so that when maybe you love this new model that came out, a new one will pop up in a week that you'll want to try out that gives you even stronger intelligence on your tests and does better. And so we see people switching models constantly on OpenRouter, and that's what gives us data also on which models are good at what. So the rankings page here is kind of like common industry way of checking how much models are being used relative to one another, and also which ones are used for different purposes. So you can see role play and marketing use cases and like science and which models are actually most interesting for each category. You can see that today we've got Gemini Flash as the top model by a big shot, but the new Claude 3.7 Sonnet that Jazz was talking about is growing pretty dramatically. And you can dive into individual model pages, check out their activity over time, get a sense of how up they are, which is actually really hard. It's not as simple as running compute. Almost all providers go down almost every week. And so OpenRouter also provides a way to increase your uptime. Now, how does this fit in to the next 5 years? It's very clear that AI is going to do way more code generation and way more coding in general than humans will. And that might extend to writing, to tons of different types of content generation. So what we have tried to build is a way of just making all of these things very accessible to AI agents, even fully autonomous ones. You can go to credits, purchase using crypto, and you can also get an API for doing this programmatically using just a simple API call and Coinbase Commerce. And then your agent, if you can basically fund its own inference. and have a virtuous cycle where it earns through some other flywheel and then directly purchases LLM inference for any model that it wants. And so we're seeing a couple companies use this. An example of a crypto app on OpenRouter that's ranking on our leaderboard is Fraction AI, which is a way of monetizing large data sets. And you can kind of explore others over time down here as well. So that's kind of an overview. Happy to field questions afterwards. But I want to draw attention to what the next speaker is going to talk about a little bit, which is sort of another frontier for OpenRouter, having these models served by decentralized providers. What does that mean? Well, if you look at like Claude 3.7 Sonnet, you can't really do it with Claude because it's a closed source model. So only Anthropic authorizes a whitelist of companies to be able to get the source code and serve the model. And that's what you see down here. But for open source models, like let's take DeepSeek, for example. Tons of companies can serve these. And even individuals can host their own DeepSeek. And it's just, it's still difficult to list on OpenRouter. We're making it easier. But a very important point is that good inference is not necessarily going to be gate-kept anymore by just a company that has a good brand. We'll eventually move towards a future where you can have trusted execution on an untrusted server. And if they're able to serve DeepSeek or any other model on OpenRouter with no privacy concerns, then it's simple and easy and very high throughput to add them directly to the marketplace. We're not quite at that future yet, but we have a pretty good start with BitTensor. And you can see BitTensor on the DeepSeek R1 free version that we have. So it's totally free to use DeepSeek here. And you can see the top providers, Shoots and Targon, and you can see how much throughput they do. This is the number of like tokens per second, their uptime over time. And you can directly use them on OpenRouter today. So a big question, I think, for these providers is going to be privacy. Right now, it's not totally certain whether your prompt is going to be fully private. So we ask people to opt in to sharing their prompts before they can access decentralized providers. I'm really excited for the future where we won't have to do that. And so if you're working on a TEE or like a trusted execution environment, decentralized provider, would love to talk. But for now, we have a really good way of just exploring new models, exploring new ways of serving them, and getting users the best possible price, best performance, and best uptime. I think I'm close to time, and so I might just invite John Durbin from Shoots to come talk a little bit more about this.
Yeah, I think it was the end of 2023, and we were talking about fine-tuning models, and you said, OpenRouter, I think there might be a product there. I remember you saying that. It's amazing the juggernaut it's become. But yeah, so Shoots, I guess I won't go through the entire demo here, but what is Shoots? We are a subnet on BitTensor. So we're subnet 64. BitTensor has 70 subnets. They all do different things. Ours is about being a sort of computational layer, but a step above that. So it's not bare compute. It's the API layer, the user layer, the scaling layer. It's all those things. So it's basically like a giant Kubernetes cluster. And anyone can build any image they want and deploy it. It's all permissionless. It's all headless payments. We do not just LLM inference. We have diffusion models. We have image editing. We have video generation, you name it. So let's see here. I'll go through some of these. Yeah, so if you think about agents, I mean, there's a ton of stuff you can do with just LLMs, but there's also a lot of things you can do that are totally outside of that space, right? So generating images, like on Shoots, we actually have a company that is building an RPG using Shoots, and they have 2 different LoRa's that they run on top of one of the Flux models, and they use DeepSeek R1 to do the actual character interaction. So they've built an entire game on Shoots just by deploying whatever Docker images that they wanted. On top of that, there's text-to-speech, transcription. If you want that voice interaction, you need some way of actually doing so. We have embedding models, you name it. So how do we succeed? Well, basically, we just give miners some incentive. The miners are the ones that actually do the work. We do the routing. And by incentivizing the right things, we get the exact behavior that we need. So what we do is we incentivize total amount of compute you provide, not just idle compute, like your GPU is attached, but that it's actually processing requests, the number of invocations you do, the number of unique apps you run, so it's like your capacity, your total bandwidth for providing service, and then how quickly you deploy something that is a new app to the system. So that's like a bounty. And by doing that, whenever you deploy an app, you get a very, very quick deploy. All the miners are chasing after being the first ones to do it, and then they'll scale with demand. So by basically incentivizing proper compute, you automatically get all the scaling you need as a developer. Our inventory, I'm just going to open up the other page here. You can go to this website anytime you want and see all of the GPUs that are attached to our network. Currently, we have 825 H200s, 602 4090s. I mean, you can go through the list. And one of the things that we do is provide LLM inference. We are a provider on OpenRouter, and we're doing, let's see, yesterday we did 5.5 billion tokens between all the models that we host. And interestingly, if you look at the daily stats for OpenRouter, number 4 there is DeepSeek R1, free. Anyone can use it, totally free. And what's really cool about that is actually probably 99% of the usage is from 2 BitTensor subnets. One is ours, Shoots, and the other one is subnet 4, Targon, which is by the Manifold team. So truly amazing, that we can actually compete with some of these other proprietary, frontier labs just from having an open source model that we can deploy. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to come up and ask me.
Thank you so much. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Alfonso. I'm one of the founders at Crossmint. We are a developer platform that creates Web2-like APIs for Web3 functionality. So we work with some Web3 companies, but also focused on more Web2 ones that want to use, for example, embedded wallets to move some of their balances on chain, to create loyalty programs using NFTs. And now we're focusing a lot on bringing AI agents on chain. And some of the reasons have been mentioned earlier, but our focus is on agents that want to become economic actors. How do we bring them on chain with easy-to-use APIs? Okay, enough chilling. I'm going to show you guys a demo of a product that we are launching right now. It's in private beta, but it's basically a totally on-chain API that allows an AI agent to purchase any real-world item entirely on-chain, okay? So let me explain a little bit why. First, use cases. So there's AI agents, for example, that are starting to become shopping assistants or personal assistants, others that are doing gifting and giveaways. others that are more internally operations within the company and may want to help, for example, fulfilling Red Bull in your fridge. These AI agents need a way to pay. We've talked about this before. They need native interfaces, and credit cards and things like that are not working well. So for the last 9 months or so, we've been building a protocol and a set of APIs that basically tokenize every real-world inventory listed on chain as an NFT and allow you to purchase those items directly as an on-chain operation with any cryptocurrency across any chain. EVM, Solana, Sui, Aptos, even Cardano. Today, I'm going to show you guys a demo and show how simple this is to use. This is all public code in mainnet. You can clone it on GitHub and try it out later. This is a repository. It's a Next.js application, Crossmin Amazon Shopper, we call it. It has the ability to buy any item you see on Amazon at the same price you see on Amazon with Prime shipping. And how this works, cannot dive into all the details, but we basically expose, like this is a blockchain protocol. We have REST APIs, but we also expose them as tools that you can import in the primary agent frameworks from Web3 frameworks like ELISA or Virtuals to Web2 ones like LangChain, CrewAI, Vercel AI, etc. And today's demo is going to be using Vercel AI for simplicity on Base, paying with USDC to buy a random thing I found earlier. OK, I'm going to show you guys the code. I think I need to make it bigger. And just get started. Try to do a quick walkthrough. I don't know how technical the audience is, but just so you see the steps. The idea is you import most things as a library. So there's just a couple things that you need to do. One, you need an agent with a wallet. In this case, just for testing purposes, it's a private key that I've hard-coded. And I previously failed with USDC in Base. Two, you need a Crossmin API key to get access to the API. I've already gotten it before. And then, sorry, this is not correct. You need to initialize a Vercel AI agent. This could be ELISA. This could be any other agent that you'd like to choose. Sorry. OK, and oops, it's hard to do this with one hand. And high level, how this works is, finally, when you initialize the agent, you need to pass it tools. If you're familiar with agent frameworks, many of these have an interface basically to extend the capability of the agent. We have a library called Goat SDK that has 200 different tools available for agents, and include this one, Crossmin's headless checkout, that allows you to buy real-world items on-chain. OK? You do that, and this is just setting up an agentic loop that I cannot explain, but it's like 100 lines of code. And with that, I'm just going to show you guys the demo. And let's pray to the demo gods that Wi-Fi and everything works well today. OK. So here we're talking with an agentic interface. This could be an autonomous agent, whatever you'd like to be. And I'm going to say, I have an Amazon item, I think here. No. 1 second. I found earlier this random, really egregious button of a goat. And how this works, you can specify many different ways what you want to buy, but one of them is an Amazon URL directly. So I'm just going to say, buy me this with your wallet with USDC on Base. And tell me first how much money you got. You're going to see here some debug instructions. Oh, well, here it already wants to buy. Actually, 1 second. Tell me first. In the wallet. I want to show you guys that it's a real wallet. This is debug instructions. It's making some tool calling. And it will show you I have $175. OK, and now it's going to buy it. And here I need to specify some information. So I'm going to ship this to the hotel so I don't get doxxed. I have it here. Sorry. Okay, and the recipient. Sorry. USDC base. And if all goes well, you're going to see here what the agent is doing. It's getting its own address to figure out, OK, how am I going to pay? And all of this is figuring out without any, there's no code written for this. This is just the agent figuring out what orders to do, what things to do. It created an order. It's paying for an order. It's buying a token. There's a transaction ID here. I'll show you guys that it's real. OK, 15 seconds ago, it's spending USDC. It's getting an NFT that proves the purchase. OK, and then it should have sent me an email confirming the order. If all goes well. OK, well, that will arrive at some point. But I'll show you a previous order I got. It sends you a receipt, and this gets shipped. I'll put on Twitter when it arrives tomorrow. It has 1-day shipping, but it all works. Reasons to do this: completely reliable for an agent. It's instant. 0 fees, you pay directly in USDC, and you have the entire inventory of Amazon, Shopify, print-on-demand websites available today, and more coming every month. If you want to check this out later, I think the easiest thing is go DM Crossman or Alpha on GJ, clone the repo, or check out our API docs. Thank you.
All right, hey everyone, I'm Kyle from Venice. I'm going to talk to you about the Venice API and really how easy it is to use and some of the really cool things that you can do through Venice and through the Venice token. So Venice, if you don't know, is a privacy-focused AI company looking to give users access to excuse me, uncensored AI without ever sharing your private user data back with the provider, whether that be OpenAI, Anthropic, whatever it may be. So the cool thing about Venice is you can get access to the API if you have a simple Pro account. You could also get access through normal USDC payment rails. And lastly, you can get access by staking the Venice token, and that's what I'm going to show you here. So if we go, I just showed, I already staked the token. I didn't want to go through internet errors here. So we stake the token, and by doing that, you get a daily amount of what we call VCUs. And VCUs are compute credits. So what happens is, for every token that you stake on Venice, you get X percentage of the overall Venice compute capacity, and that resets per day. So it's a really sustainable way for your agent to have a long-term way to access LLM inference. And it's really important to think about the open source aspect of going through some of the, we talked about some DeepSeek models, some of the other amazing open source models that are out there that are uncensored, that you can really trust that your agent is doing, what you need it to do without any kind of manipulation. All right, so here we staked the VVV. We got our VCUs, so we have some credits here, and we're just going to create an API key. So pretty much, you see I have 17 credits. Okay. We're going to just create an API key. We'll name it test. So some of the settings here, once you have an API key, you actually have admin controls if you want, so you can systematically create additional API keys for sub-agents or other agents that are running different sorts of tools. So you don't need to interact with the UI at all. You can really run this all programmatically, which is really cool. So we'll generate that API key. And then really the next step in getting this running is going to either calling it systematically or going to our API reference page and just putting in your key. For this, I'm going to show you a cursor demo, so we're going to grab a code model. We'll run it. You'll see on the right here, this is the list of all the different code-focused models. So we have DeepSeek, we have Qwen. We'll grab Qwen. copy that. And then you just pop over. The API is all based on OpenAI API format. So really you can, if you're using an OpenAI model, if you're using an Anthropic model, you can just really drag and drop your API key in from Venice and get it to run. So this is a script that I probably shouldn't be showing, but so we're just going to test this. So this is Cursor. Pretty much it's a coding assistant program in IDE. So I just, if you do Command L, it'll bring up a chat window. So I'll just say explain this code. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back a step. I skipped a little. So to configure that with, all right, let's back out. So it's not as easy as I just made it, but so to configure that with Venice, you're just going to go to the settings in Cursor, and you're going to go to the model section and scroll down, and they have a nice OpenAI API key section. There's a button to override the base URL to use another source. So you're just going to put in that Venice base URL, which is api.venice.ai, and so on. You're going to paste in your API key here, which we already did. Oops, let's just go back and grab that. We'll click verify. That runs a sample API call just to make sure that everything's working properly. And then you just add your model in, and you're pretty much good to go. So we have this chat that we're looking at, explain this code. I'm showing off Cursor because I like it. But so what's going to happen is it's going to reach out, and you know, we have our response there. I think it's been like 2 or 3 minutes that I've been talking, and we just got an API key by staking. We connected it, and we're already running. So I just want to show how simple it is and how beneficial this Venice mechanism of token staking for sustainable compute is when we talk about how we want agents to run over time. Like, yeah, we can use USD rails if we don't want to stake, but having that ability where you don't have to worry about daily, weekly, monthly payments to keep that agent running is really how we get to the fully autonomous layer of sustainable agents. So that's all I'm showing here today, but happy to take any questions after. I'm sitting right over there.
She's a Colorado comet in code forged steel, wings snipping latency like scissors through gel. 9 centuries young with a lance that's, if your chain's choking, Ethernet whiz. Found her at a bullet hook, sucking down APIs, armor clinking with layer 2 lullabies, scalability scripture. She winks at the moon while ocean dew. Walks grind, her shield's a disco wall, fracturing legs, grass, crack.
I'm super energized about AI. I am Matt Wright. I am CEO and co-founder of Gaia. We do decentralized AI inference. We've got some lovely friends here who are also building in the decentralized AI space. We're going to go through what has been built in the decentralized AI ecosystem, what needs to be built. We'll go through some of the stack, which a lot of us here are currently building, have been building, and perhaps discuss what's been exciting out there, and how do we talk to developers who are building in the space, and how do we guide them in the right direction to solve for some of the challenges and gaps we have in the ecosystem. I also have background in building accelerator programs and investing, and so I think all of us here have done very similar, where we've worked with builders on a daily basis, and we're entering this really cool paradigm where we now have to start to deal with machines and robots as customers and as builders, and so should be a fun conversation. I think maybe we can start with some quick introductions. Yeah.
Sure thing. So, hello. So, I'm Derek Yu. I'm a software builder. Been building software for a long time, since the late 90s. In Web3 since 2019. Known as the founder of a project called Moonbeam, and also there we go. Also the CEO of a company called Moonsong Labs. So at Moonsong Labs, we're a 50-person company, both building and building new companies, specifically in the AI Web3 kind of intersection area. So.
Hey everyone, this is Jasper. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Hyperbolic. I did my math PhD at UC Berkeley. I finished it in 2 years, which made me the fastest person to finish a PhD in the history of Berkeley. Before that, I did my undergrad at Peking University, the best university in China, graduated with the highest honor, and I won a few gold medals in various mathematical competitions. After graduation, I worked at Citadel Securities and Avalanche. By the end of 2022, I founded Hyperbolic Labs with my co-founder, and we have been building decentralized AI cloud since 2022. And we raised 20 million so far, backed by prestigious investors like Polychain, Variant, Lightspeed Faction, etc. And we have served more than 100K users in the world, and we provide GPU marketplace, which allow anyone to contribute and access GPUs. And on top of the GPU network that we built, we have built an AI inference service that serve tons of open source AI models. We integrate with many mainstream applications, including OpenRouter. And the OpenAI co-founder, Andrej Karpathy, say that Hyperbolic is his favorite place to try out base LLM models. So if you are interested in building in decentralized AI, go to our website and try out the apps.
Awesome. Hey guys, this is Ram. I'm one of the co-contributors at OpenLedger. I've been in the space from 2017. I got into it because I got paid in Bitcoin. Been building from then. OpenLedger is about a year old. We've been funded by Polychain, Borderless, and many more investors in the industry. We enable people to contribute data sets, collaborate with these data sets, and build specialized AI models. Think of us to be the Web3 version of Hugging Face. We currently are in testnet right now, going mainnet soon. We have about 1 million users who have contributed data sets on top of us, and more than 50 plus use cases that are being currently built. And I'm happy to be here and talking about decentralized AI.
Awesome, thanks guys. Cool, so I'll set the scene a little bit here for folks that are perhaps maybe a little new to decentralized AI. What we're doing at Gaia, just to give a bit of a bias here, we're taking open source large language models. Right now there's 1.5 million available models on Hugging Face. You can take these, take your own knowledge, your own data, natural language, and turn that into a living knowledge system where you can serve AI agents or AI apps inference. And so for that to happen, we see the rise of open source LLMs, open source AI tooling as a huge driver for why we're able to actually, help people, operate in agentic, scopes of work and kind of fight against hallucination in AI. We think there's huge opportunities for verifying inference and validating, agentic kind of workflows. I'd love to hear from you guys here, like, what do you see as the biggest gaps from getting us to this agentic future? Like, I think a lot of us working inference and compute and even in models? Like, what do you think? One at a time, but what are we missing?
Sure. One thing I would say that is there's a pretty big gap or difference when you compare, when you talk to Web 2 companies, regular Web 2 companies and Web 3 companies, right? So Web 3 agent builders, tend towards the, full autonomy. Sure, let's go. Let's give it a goal. Let's arm it with some money. Let's see what happens. There's no enterprise out there that isn't also looking at this, but the conversation, in my experience, tends to be quite a bit different, right? They're like, okay, well, we've automated these workflows, but we're pretty concerned about giving autonomy to these agents. We're not sure if the agent's going to go off the rails, is going to hallucinate, is going to damage our brand, is going to, act in a way that's not conforming with our values. And so I think there's a lot of concern along those lines that prevent the deployment of more autonomous agents in the enterprise right now. And to me, that's kind of the more interesting segment right now, because it's just so much larger than the Web3 agent builder audience, right? There isn't a business out there that isn't trying to figure this out right now, across all industries, basically.
Yeah, I would say Web 2 and Web 3, the main difference is Web 3 is all about experiments and try to figure out what is the end goal of agents. And then for Web 2, it's all about fundamentals and product market fit, like whether this agent can actually deliver the good work and create value for the company, for the customers. And so because of the difference, you can see most agents that Web 2 companies are building are actually utility-based agent. They help you to serve customers as a customer service agent. They help you to write code. They help you to do analysis, etc. But none of this make Web3 people very excited, and that's the reason why in Web3 space, the most agents that you see are Twitter bots. You just post Twitters, and people want to see how good posts they can make, and then they try to let the agents to have its own wallet and then do these different autonomous experiments. But I would say currently the limit of having autonomous agents is the model itself. Like right now, the model is not smart enough that it can't be autonomous. So this will need at least 2 or 3 more years to have AGI level model. And once we have that, then it will be much easier to build autonomous agents. And we also need if we really want autonomous agents, then we need crypto payments, we need permissionless access to different infrastructure, and that's one direction that Hyperbolic is pushing. We try to build an autonomous AI cloud so that AI agents can just pay through crypto. They can rent compute with some simple API calls through function calling, and it's too early to talk about autonomous agents at the moment, but we're going to see more advancements in the next 2 years.
So I agree to most of the points that were discussed. Agents, as you know, is very meme-ish nowadays. I think it's very similar to what happened in crypto over the last 8 to 9 years. There's always some kind of speculation. That's how ICO was started, and then there were projects which had utility. Same with DeFi. Initially, it was more of scams, and then we had actual use cases that came out. This has been the trend because in crypto, you get to go to market right away, right? You get to go public compared to traditional space where you have to work your ass off to do that. So I guess that's what kind of brings down the utility in Web3. We've also seen this happen in the traditional space. If you take a look at it 2 years back when OpenAI launched ChatGPT, most of the agents that were launched were ChatGPT wrappers, right? They didn't have much use cases. But then that kind of matured. We saw products like Perplexity use much better models which were trained on a particular vertical. Like say you ask a question to Perplexity, it gets the context of that using OpenAI, and then if it's a math question, it'll run through a fee model, which is a specialized math model for you to give an answer, right? Which is much more precise than using a generic model. So the key behind this is to make sure these agents have the right data feeds and models so that they can be much more precise and less hallucinating. very similarly how humans have been over the last few years, like, last all generations, because we specialize in a particular field and we become an expert in that, and that's how we are able to like provide specialized solutions. We don't have like a general knowledge, right? So I guess that's what agents have to be. They don't need to use generalized models. Generalized models are needed only just to understand context. Specialized models are the one which actually brings precision. And that's what we want to solve, right? We want to provide the infrastructure for people to collaborate with data and build models on top of us so that we have different use cases solved, like use cases around DeFi, use cases around governance, probably traditional use cases around healthcare and so as well. So the idea behind this is to enable people to contribute data sets so that we enrich AI with data, like how we enrich web with content, and make sure these agents on any kind of AI services have enough data sets, enough models so that they can be smarter. And that's what I believe is the infrastructure that is very much core needed. And then obviously there's other providers like GPUs and all that is also needed as well.
Amazing. Thank you. So I'm going to say something crazy here, guys. In the next 1 to 2 years, we're going to have more AI agents on the internet than humans on Earth. 7 to 8 billion entities on the internet doing autonomous functions over time. We'll get there. But what's insane is that we have, the advent of LLMs like DeepSeek that have now taken the model and LLM game to a zero-sum game. Like, it was once kind of this thought that Silicon Valley needed, $10 billion to invest in large language models to be sufficient. We're now doing this in the $5 to $6 million range. It's going to go all the way down even lower. I'm sure performance and benchmarking is another conversation to have, but it's quite obvious that open source large language models at scale and agents operating in autonomous capacities is going to create this interesting world where we're interacting with agents as apps, as the front end, and it's agents all the way down. Our agents will have agents. And so we're starting to build in this new paradigm where we're talking to robots for machine-to-machine commerce and software development. So I think one question I have for you guys is, how do we give some advice to builders out here who are looking to build for this new customer category? How do we approach it? They don't need some sexy UX. They just need a fucking API. How do we approach that? How do we give builders some advice?
I mean, the first I just want to comment on one of your points that I too, this kind of DeepSeek, some of these things we've seen recently, that makes me very bullish in a way because the worst possible future in my mind is this world where there's just 1, 2, 3 companies that mega companies, mega models, they're controlling everything. Frankly, there's not much room for Web3 in that picture either, or a limited picture, right? So to see small teams able to innovate at the same level as these large companies, that to me speaks to a future where there's a lot of specialized players, and that's a place where Web3 can really play a strong role, right? Connecting, facilitating, and coordinating between these different players.
And what do you think in Web3 would be those primitives or intents that would be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, this obviously goes back to the question we've grappled with a lot, which is, what is Web3 good for in this context? And in the worst case, it's not doing that much. You're just slapping kind of a token on something. But where I've come to is there's a few things that Web3 and blockchains are really good at. One of them definitely is this to act as a coordination mechanism. So you see that as the core idea behind the whole deepen category, where basically the blockchain's acting as this coordination mechanism for a multi-sided marketplace. So I see that pattern as something that is highly likely to emerge with agents being the participants in these networks. And but the second point that I really liked that you made was around to think about what does it mean when agents are your customer and agents are your suppliers. I think that almost all the tools that we have today have been designed with humans, right? With an assumption that it's a human on either end of that. So that to me is a huge opportunity to just, all these things that exist today need to be rethought in the context of, being agent first or agent centric. So that's for new builders now. I think there's a huge amount of opportunity to just, you ask yourself a question, what does sales look like when you're selling to an agent? It probably looks a whole lot different than the sales motion that most companies have now.
Going to a bar and doing BD.
Yeah, exactly. So that to me is exciting, and that's where I see a lot of opportunity for new projects.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think we'll totally have a different UX when we have much more agents customers than human customers. Like what you said, we no longer need UI. What they just need is API. And so we need to make sure that all the transactions that all the interaction that human are currently doing on the web page can be done through API. Or another possibility is like, we know there are many different browser use agents, and even the ChatGPT, OpenAI released like operator agent, which can browse through internet via a browser. So that's another potential that you can see agents continue using browser as the interface to interact with the different applications. But I would say preferably agents would prefer API. So I think at least we need to provide like APIs as the way for agents to interact. That's what we are currently doing. Like on Hyperbolic, we have this GPU marketplace. So you need to first register the account. You need to connect the wallet with the account, and then also rent GPU through API, and then access the GPUs. And so we almost finished all these different APIs to allow agents to access the compute. And we start seeing more and more different companies that just release like a markdown for the whole documentation they have for their applications. I think that's the first step, and we're going to see more and more design that's good for, that's like very useful for the AI agents.
So the questions around how decentralization can enable more innovations, like what's the...
So if we're looking at a new customer category like agents, there's to work with this new kind of persona.
Yeah. So I believe the major point of decentralization is, right, I don't think we need to like really look at targeting like centralized projects which are like building like larger language model. That's, I think initially that's like out of reach because there's so much resources and cost that goes into that. It's like what happened with the internet, right? How like when internet came about, like it was centralized, but what we built on top of that, like HTTPS and all that, is what enabled the World Wide Web to happen, right? So how can we use resources that is available in decentralization to enable much more bootstrapping to happen? I think it's the best form of how we can contribute the, the upcoming customer interface agents and stuff like that. So if we can enable resources to be available, and if we can enable incentivization for people to contribute for these resources, like for example, with data, we incentivize people to contribute data sets so that we can build models. I think that's one of the core aspects of decentralization, because we can use crypto rails to incentivize people across the globe, and I don't have to worry about any kind of red tapes, right? So this definitely happened with GPUs. If you take a look at the initial decentralized compute projects, they enable GPUs to get at much lower cost compared to the centralized providers. You could get it at a fraction of cost that enable a lot of builders in the space to actually rent these GPUs and build models and like experiment around that. That's what we want to do as well. We want to enable people to get access to data at much lower cost, get access to models at lower cost. So agents, who people are exploring with agents who want to experiment with this, can have a plethora of models and data feeds that are available, where you don't have to worry about paying like high inference cost or tokens to these larger language models. You have much more incentivized smaller models that are available, which are precise compared to the larger language models there. So I think bootstrapping and incentivization is the core of Web3 that we can use to innovate much more larger, experiments that can be done in the space.
Amazing. We're almost up for time, but we'll ask one last question, hopefully, if that's okay. Stop me if that's not okay. But looking at kind of this machine-to-machine commerce and these new customer categories, or how do we enter like existing verticals like consumer gaming, DeFi? Let's go maybe like real quick across like what verticals are interesting to you folks. For me personally, very interested in AgentFi, of course. Not just agents managing a portfolio, but managing like a collateralized debt position, and perhaps like offering a DeFi loan to me and making sure I'm not liquidated. I'm also interested in future of work. I'm working very closely with the MotherDAO folks, with my co-founder James Young, on agents with jobs. So agents that can be virtual twins of community managers, hackathon organizers, bounty distribution agents, grant distribution agents. What is interesting to you folks? Like what verticals are like a big opportunity?
Yeah, I'd say maybe a little bit less of a vertical, but like I mentioned the idea before about blockchains as coordination systems. That's one idea we're on. The other one that we've been exploring lately is using a blockchain as, one of my colleagues has this expression he uses as the network is the gym. And what he means by that is using a network as kind of an open place where agents can contribute code, other kinds of artifacts, but then you're using a reinforcement learning mechanism to kind of evolve this like shared capability, almost like an open source code project. I think that's an interesting idea that leans into how AI works and like can produce like superior results like we saw with DeepSeek using this reinforcement learning approach. So.
Yeah, I'm interested in coding agent. We're starting seeing like traditional Web2 apps like Cursor, Codium, etc. You can now use agents to code. And what I want to see is you actually have autonomous agents that can submit PR, make edits of the codes, and even write codes from scratch. That's something that I'm very excited about, and that will push the limit of company. Like we're gonna see humanless company, or like just one single human manage 100 agents that build a 1 billion unicorn company in the very soon. Yeah.
I think DeFi is definitely a space that I'm quite excited about. We all know that DeFi is quite complex. We have like common consensus on that. So definitely onboarding in DeFi, making it much more abstract. Agents can definitely help you out in that particular sector. Gaming is quite interesting as well. NPCs can come to life with gaming, especially like in Web3 gaming. There's always a problem of liquidity. You don't have much players. So if you can create like agents of your own versions on how you play and have those agents play across like games, I think that can solve a lot of liquidity problem, player liquidity problem in the DeFi gaming space. I also think that governance is something which can be explored. Governance in Web3 is pretty slow. Not much happens because you don't have people coming and actually voting for various proposals there. So if you can have agents who understand who you are and go vote for governance, that's an interesting sector that I would like to see evolve as well. So these are some sectors.
Amazing. Thank you all. Thank you everyone for listening. Big round of applause for my panelists here.